I often get asked about how to have hard conversations when it comes to feedback. Like, how do you have a hard conversation? How do you deliver challenging feedback? What do you do when you find yourself in a situation as a leader where there's something that is behaviorally going on, or maybe it's performance-based, and it's hard feedback? It is very difficult to deliver that to someone. And I've seen a lot of leaders make mistakes because there is a lot at stake when it comes to a hard conversation. And I see leaders make a mistake because they choose not to do it. They choose to delay or procrastinate, or ultimately they don't do it at all. And the behavior or the performance gap continues to escalate over time to where it causes a lot of real problems for the leader. And so hard conversations are a reality. It's part of being a people leader, to where we have to have challenging and difficult conversations with people that are on our team. And I often talk to people about hard conversations when they bring it up, and just share with them that a lot of times conversations become hard because we don't have them when they're simpler. Hard conversations become hard because we procrastinate and we delay. And if we wait a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 months or 6 months to have the conversation, then it becomes a lot more difficult to deliver that news, to engage in that conversation with someone on our team. And so when you think about having a hard conversation, you have to come back to our acronym for feedback, that we want our feedback to be FAST. And one of the ways that you attack a conversation whenever it's a challenging conversation is to apply the principles of our FAST feedback, which is to be frequent, to accentuate the positive, to be specific, and to be timely. That you want to be having smaller conversations about what you're observing when it comes to the challenging behavior or the performance issue that you want to address, that you want to accentuate the positive, you want to find things that they're doing well, and you want to accentuate those and affirm those. You want to be very specific about the behaviors that you're seeing, and you want it to be timely. You want it to be proximity-wise close to your observation or close to your experience with the challenging feedback that you want to share. And so we always want our feedback to be fast, regardless of what it is. But specifically when it comes to delivering hard, challenging conversations, we have to abide by and apply the principles of fast feedback. And so how do you deliver a hard conversation? How do you deliver challenging feedback? How do you deliver that? And I know if you're like me, that when I have a conversation like that, it can create a lot of anxiety, that I can be timid. It creates some nervousness inside of me. I don't necessarily like delivering feedback that's like that. I can feel anxious inside. I can feel a little bit scared. I can feel a little bit out of control because I have no way of understanding or knowing or controlling how the other person is going to respond to the feedback that I give them. But what I've learned is that in that situation, I have to have the courage as a leader to lean in and have that conversation, to initiate the dialogue around the behavior or the performance issue that I'm seeing and address it. Because as a leader, I always get two things. I always get what I create, and I always get what I allow. And if I allow bad behavior, if I allow bad performance to continue, it actually impacts me as a leader and my leadership influence and my leadership credibility within my team and outside my team. And so it's important, even though we feel those emotions, that we need to lean in and have those conversations for the sake of the person we're talking to and their own development, and for our own sake and credibility and influence as a leader. So what do you do when you have a situation like that? What do you do whenever there's a challenging conversation that you need to have that's going to be very difficult to deliver and very difficult for the person on the other side to hear? I think the first thing and most important thing is you have to prepare for that conversation. If you think you can fly by the seat of your pants, if you think you can wing it, if you think you can just show up and bring it up spontaneously, more than likely that will not end the way that you want. More than likely you won't get the outcome that you want. In fact, it may have an adverse impact. It may make things worse. It may escalate the situation. It may create another problem for you that will make that conversation more difficult whenever you follow up. And so it's important to prepare. And to prepare looks like this. When I prepare for hard, challenging conversations, one of the first things that I do is make sure that I understand the most effective way to deliver feedback to this person. How do they receive feedback in a way that speaks their language? And it's different for everyone on my team. I can't approach it all in a single way. And so I have to understand for this particular person, whenever I have to deliver challenging feedback, How do they receive it? How do they like to receive it? And what is going to speak their language that puts me in a situation where I can get the outcome that I want from sharing the feedback? So I want to spend time preparing and understanding that and being clear with it. I also want to spend time narrowing down to what is the big idea I want them to hear. What is the one thing I want them to hear during this feedback session that I want them to take away? And I write it down and I work on it and I iterate on it during my preparation to make sure that I am very clear on the one thing I want them to take away and hear from me. Because what I've seen often is that we get into these situations and we add a lot of fluff around the feedback we're trying to share, and the message gets lost. And people leave the conversation with us feeling like we may have done a good job delivering it, but they're confused on what it was that was communicated, and they're confused on what it is they need to do based on the conversation that they had with you, their leader. And so you want to spend time narrowing down what is the one thing that you want them to take away and hear from you about the challenging feedback that you're sharing. And then you want to lead with that when you get in the conversation so it doesn't get lost in everything else that you say. You want to lead with it, and then you can have a conversation, a dialogue together around that idea as you unpack it together and you share fast feedback with them, the specific feedback and the timely feedback that they need in order to absorb and understand what it is you're trying to communicate to them. And so you want to spend time narrowing down that idea. And then the third thing as you prepare is you want to spend time writing down and thinking through the specific actions that you want them to take to adapt their behavior or to change their performance. You can't let them leave this conversation not knowing what to do with what you're sharing. And so you need to be prepared to say, this is the big idea, this is the performance gap, or this is the behavior that I've observed that isn't acceptable or that needs to change. And here are 2 ways that I want you to change it. Here are 2 ways that this looks like in action as you adapt your behavior or change your performance. And you want to be very specific so that when you get into the conversation, you have your notes, you've prepared, you have your big idea, but you can share, my expectation as a leader is that you do these 2 things differently, and here are the actions that you can take in order to adapt your behavior. And then from there, you follow up in your one-on-ones on how are they performing against the adapted actions that you've given them when it comes to the feedback response that you want to get from them from this hard conversation. And so when you think about how to deliver a difficult conversation, that one is you want it to be fast feedback that we've talked about, frequent, accentuate the positive. You want it to be specific and timely. You want to spend time preparing. Don't fly by the seat of your pants. And in your preparation, you want to personalize the way you deliver the feedback. You want to identify the big idea, and you want to write down specific actions. And then when you deliver it to the person on your team, you want to start with the big idea so it doesn't get lost in everything else you talk about. Create a dialogue for understanding and then drive it to action. And make it clear for the person that you're sharing this with what they need to do as a result of your feedback. And if you do that and you commit to giving fast feedback, it can make that conversation more effective. It doesn't make it less challenging, but ultimately it can help you deliver the outcome that you want to get from engaging in a difficult conversation with someone on your team.